Hey everybody, I am so grateful that you are taking this time to invest in finding out more about what we call this wonderful world of reintegration. This first introduction video is one of a series of training videos that we will be putting online for faith communities to understand and to be able to engage in the process of providing healthy reintegration for offenders as they enter into parole. First of all, let me introduce myself. My name is Adam Wiggins. I'm with an organization that's called Better Life Integration and Support. Better Life Integration and Support is the faith community reintegration partner that has the contract with Correctional Services Canada, or CSC as they are better known, for the Pacific region. And so we work to provide faith community reintegration support for the 9 institutions, correctional institutions, prisons, that are here in the Pacific region and throughout all of the parole districts within BC and the Yukon. And so we have this contract with federal corrections, and you may know that in Canada, any sentence over 2 years, an individual goes into federal corrections. Any sentence under 2 years, and the individual goes into provincial corrections, and that's the distinction between the two. And so the area that Better Life works in specifically is with CSC, with federal corrections and with offenders who have been sentenced to over 2 years. So the question is, as we begin, what is reintegration? That's why we're here. And I'm so glad you asked the question. But before I launch into the explanation, let me first give you a picture. Just take a look at this. Well, a bridge in many respects is a almost perfect illustration for reintegration, to explain reintegration. In fact, the bridge terminology is a terminology that we use a lot in our work of reintegration. Now, reintegration is providing invaluable support to an offender that travels from a correctional institution prison, in a correctional institution prison where they're serving out their sentence, into a time of parole within the environment of an offender's faith community, and back into the community at large through that process, through that journey, to again become a contributing, thriving member of the community. So on one hand, what Better Life says, the reason we exist is to eradicate recidivism or reoffending in this specific district. On the other hand, in a sense, what's even more important, or what the goal is that offenders, through this process of reintegration, would once again become contributing members, thriving members within their community. And that is the goal that we are all working towards. So for our purposes, would you think with me about 4 different sections of a bridge? 4 different sections of a bridge. Think about this picture of this bridge, a suspension bridge, obviously, but you can picture any bridge that you like. And the first section of the bridge, where we like to start, and in a sense what informs the work that we do, empowers, if you will, the work that we do, is what is it that supports the bridge. The first section is what supports the bridge, what holds up the bridge. In the case of the picture, the suspension bridge, it's obviously the cables. I'm not an engineer, but we know that there's cables that provide that support and that strength to the bridge. In the case of other bridges that we have around us, it's often the pilings, and then what they call the piers or the columns that hold up the bridge. And of course, these supports are essential for the strength of the bridge, for the bridge, in a sense, to do its job of allowing people or vehicles to pass over it. And what's so essential to recognize, first of all, in the work of reintegration, to providing support to an offender from one side of the bridge to the other, is that we are not the bridge. You and I are not the bridge. For the sake of the offender, for the sake of ourselves, those of us who are providing supportive reintegration, for the sake of the healthy reintegration, the outcome of the healthy reintegration experience, we need to recognize that our role isn't to be the bridge for this offender, but to supportively cross the bridge with the offender. To take this one step further, the support of the bridge, essentially the entire process of reintegration, equally for the offender and for ourselves, is ultimately our faith, our belief in our God. It is the relationship with our God, our faith practices that give us wisdom and strength and hope for the journey, and all the other elements that are invaluable for healthy reintegration, which actually, when you think about it, it applies to all of life for each one of us as people of faith. That it's our relationship with our God, it's our belief in our God, the practice of our faith that gives us the strength and the wisdom and the ability to make the journey effectively. Well, the second section of the bridge is the on-ramp, or the entrance to the bridge. We can think about the on-ramp and reintegration as what an offender is experiencing in an institution. Better Life and for that matter, other reintegration organizations are first of all contacted by a faith-based offender who are inquiring about the kind of support that they can receive from their faith community. In this sense, Better Life becomes a kind of a bridge again in the process. And so an offender from a correctional institution reaches out to Better Life. A Better Life team member, staff member goes to meet with the offender to give information about Better Life and to do what we call an intake assessment. And in that assessment, we're getting to know the individual, we're getting to know their background, their history, getting to know them as an individual and a person, which is so important in the context of corrections. But at the same time, we are also practicing discernment and wisdom, because we do not take our trust lightly with you as a faith community. And we want to understand, what is the motivation? What is the underlying desire of this individual for the support that they are looking for? Because in a way, all offenders want as much support as they can get, but we're looking for that sincerity. We're looking for that motivation as this relationship, and again, to use the word, bridge is built between an offender and their faith community as they approach their parole. Now, Better Life, if we move ahead with the offender, if the offender decides to ask for our support, often has a period of about a year that we work with an offender towards, hopefully, an effective parole hearing. And so during that time, that 12-month period, what we are establishing and what we are doing is we're working together with what's called the correctional management team to understand and to shape the correctional plan so that the offender can take positive steps to both understand and then take those steps towards gaining an effective parole hearing and parole to enter into what they hope is their parole. Now, during this period, while the Better Life team member is meeting with the offender within their incarceration, their last 12 months, hopefully, Better Life is also meeting, seeking to establish, seeking to identify with a faith community so that they are prepared, so that they are ready to receive, to welcome, and to help this offender have an effective experience of parole and an effective, healthy reintegration back into the community. And our goal at Better Life is that in every one of the major parole areas of the Pacific region, that we have faith communities that have been identified, that are welcoming places, that are trained up places, that have a desire to engage in the work of reintegration, and that see the translation of their faith and belief in their God as entering into providing this kind of support, motivating them to provide this kind of support for offenders who may desire to be a part of their community. Well, also during this time, this 12-month period, there is what is called ETAs. Now, this has changed a little bit with the restrictions of COVID, but there are something called ETAs, and an offender during this time, even though they're in the corrections institution or the prison, they can get out on a day pass and they can visit their faith communities, and a relationship can begin to be developed through those ETAs. There is also the opportunity, again, the restrictions of COVID, but typically for volunteers or mentors from a faith community to go to the correctional institution and to connect with the offender who desires to be a part of their community. So again, there can be an understanding that's developed, that there's a relationship that is in process and is established by the time this person gains their parole. Now, that's just a quick overview of this second step. But let me just pause for a moment and ask, are there any questions about this experience that the offender has that begins the first step on the on-ramp, if you will, of this bridge of reintegration? Now, we do these sessions live at times, and this is where we pause and we take questions. But if you're listening to this online, let me encourage you that you can email me whatever questions you may have. adam.betterlife@gmail.com. adam.betterlife@gmail.com. And also, let me refer you to the other training sessions that go into a lot more detail about what an offender's experience is like, as well as these different sections of reintegration that we're going to look at. So that is section 2. But let's think about the third section of the bridge, in a sense, the main section, that illustrates when an offender has a successful parole hearing and then enters into their period of parole in their community. Here is where, without exaggeration, the invaluable support of the faith community is provided. It's where the people and the resources of the faith community comes into play and literally are a game changer, can be a life transformer, if you will, for the experience of healthy reintegration. The power of a faith community for healthy reintegration is that you are literally a relational resource center. Relationship with God, with your God, healthy relationship with others, and providing invaluable support to offenders out of the resources that you possess as a community, and directing those resources towards the offender, directing the offender towards being able to access those resources. When we begin looking at the steps of healthy reintegration, they are many and they are varied. There are steps that are common for all offenders. But there are steps that are unique in that everyone is an individual. Everybody has their own story, their own needs. What we can say is that this main section of the bridge is built upon relationship, relationship, relationship. We'll look at the details of what clear and manageable steps are for a healthy reintegration process, but they basically come down to 2 areas in particular. First of all, it is understanding what are the parolee's needs. The supportive steps that you take with them will come from and be proportionally effective as you understand the needs of the person you support. So that may sound like like a no-brainer in a sense, like, yeah, well, duh. But on the other hand, what's significant, what we always need to keep in mind is that one size doesn't fit all. One plan doesn't fit all. This is a very personal journey. And as I said, there's steps that are common to all, but then there is the uniqueness of what we do. And we need to be prepared for that reality in the reintegration support that we provide. Well, secondly, there is the need to provide a clear pathway for growth that allows the parolee to experience the support of the resources that they require, to access the resources that they require. And that includes, and we'll go into this in much more detail in further sessions, but the spiritual practices of your faith that help to bring the parolee into a deeper experience of who their God is and how their God gives them a sense of identity and worth and clarity as they continue to make positive steps in their life. There are the practical needs that every parolee has. There is the great need for healthy relationships, that healthy relationships are experienced but also modeled for them. And so many of these pieces are so critical, and sometimes we overlook them. For instance, the reality of the world that changes so rapidly. And if you think about someone being in federal corrections, perhaps a lifer that spent decades incarcerated to come out and all of a sudden be handed an iPhone if that doesn't break the restrictions, or to access the internet. It's like it's a whole new world. And so there are so many practical needs that can be met in a sense at such a simple level that help to make life so much easier for an offender as they enter into their parole. Well, through this part of the journey, I just want to emphasize through this main section of the bridge, this invaluable section and resource that you as a faith community are, that you have the support of Better Life every step of the way. First of all, there's our Better Life staff member or team member, in many cases the one who has met with the individual that you are supporting when they were in the correctional institution, that knows them, that understands their background, their unique needs, and they are available for calls and for texts and emails and the like. And it may be just saying, hey, just wanted to celebrate with you this great step that we took ahead. And we love to hear stories like that. But it may be, not sure what the next step is. Can you help me with that? And our staff at Better Life are experienced people. Many of them have worked at times with, for instance, M2W2, the NOLA program. Many of them have come up through that training and through having experience with them. Some have been prison chaplains from all walks of life, but they have such a great deal of experience that they are happy to lend to you and to have a supportive role in your reintegration support that you provide. The second thing is, of course, the training videos that we provide online as Better Life that are available anytime, anywhere, that you can look up a specific area if you're wondering, okay, what do I do next? Or what about this? We will continue to make videos that address all of these details of reintegration to provide a support and clarity around what are manageable steps that you can take that help an offender effectively cross from one side of the bridge over to the other side. Well, finally, there is that fourth section of the bridge, which is it's the off-ramp. It's the exit, right? It's like, okay, it's nice to travel over a bridge. In some ways, it's also, it's kind of nice in a lot of cases to kind of get off the bridge. Maybe some of us feel that way, especially about a suspension bridge, that's swaying back and forth. It's like, let's get over the bridge. Let's get to the other side. And frankly, that is the goal of reintegration. It's the reintegration, the healthy, effective reintegration of the parolee back into the community. And it reflects our belief that an offender can not only be guarded against recidivism and reoffending again, but thrive and become a contributing member of their community. And it's vital to reinforce that belief, to operate, to function with that belief in mind. Our hope is that healthy relationships with God and with others continue as a natural rhythm and practice in the offender's life. We hope that the faith community isn't just the means for a parolee to make it through their time of supervision, but that lifelong relationships and practices are developed and will continue as an ongoing experience that informs and leads to a healthy life, which is the goal that we all are working towards. But let me close by asking this question. What is the motivation to provide reintegration? In a sense, what motivation can I give you as a faith community, as a mentor, as a volunteer, to invest in this work of reintegration? Let's ask the question, why? Why should you do this? Why would you want to do this? Well, first of all, it is because of the radical reduction in recidivism. When a faith-based offender is reintegrated into their faith community, experiences healthy relationships, as I said, with God and with others, when the resources of that community are directed towards them, the rate of reoffending and recidivism, it just drops into the basement. It is a huge game changer. It's a huge life changer, transformational for offenders who access, because there is that aspect of what we're talking about where an offender has to access the resources, make their way to the resources, grab a hold of the resources. But as they do that, there's this incredible drop in recidivism and the development of a healthy life and a healthy reintegration back into the community, which shouldn't surprise us, because frankly, these steps of reintegration, as we'll look at, are the elements that lead to a healthy life for each and every one of us. Uh, Second, many faiths encourage investing in marginalized people. A part of the faith, a part of the belief, is that as we care for those who are less fortunate, it's actually an example. It is an expression of our belief in our God, in serving those who are marginalized, serving those who are in need. In other words, to invest in prisoners allows for a meaningful expression of our faith. It is a part of living our faith out. For example, in terms of one faith, if you think about the Christian faith for a moment, Jesus says in Matthew 25, he says, I was hungry and you fed me. Here's a need. Meet this need. I was thirsty and you gave me a drink. I was homeless and you gave me a room. I was shivering and you gave me clothes. I was sick and you stopped to visit me. I was in prison. Jesus literally says, I was in prison and you came to visit me. And so Jesus is very clearly saying these actions of caring for those in need are an example, an illustration, um, in a sense, the confirmation of your faith being expressed in actions. It's a part of your belief. It's not just something in your head. It's not even just something in your heart, but it's something that finds very real practical expression in your life. But then, in many respects, Jesus just takes it up a whole other notch. And this is what he says. I'm telling the solemn truth. In other words, underline this. This is important. Whenever you did one of these things to someone overlooked or ignored, that was me. You did it to me. And so Jesus is saying, in the context of the expression of faith, of investing in those who are marginalized, those who are in need, it's actually as if you are serving your God. It is that you are serving your God through your actions. You are doing it for your God as you meet the needs of others. So what I'm saying, and what the Better Life team, faith communities, mentors, and volunteers experience constantly is that whatever your primary motivation is, that you and I can make a game-changing, life-changing difference as we invest in providing healthy reintegration. It's transforming for the offender and good for the faith community, mentors, and volunteers as we live out our faith. And frankly, for our communities. And when it comes right down to it, to our nation as a whole, that there is hope, that transformation and life change are possible. And that's what we believe, isn't it? As people of faith. And so, what I'd like to encourage you to do in closing, as we end this first session, and in a sense, this is I'll even call this session 2, and that is that you would access, you take the time to read an offender's story, or you would listen to an offender's story to understand what both the unique experience of being in corrections is like, but in many cases to understand what is the reality for many offenders. What is the situation that they came out of, or the situation that led to their offending? And it just continues to hit one at a heart level to listen to what people have experienced and how they have taken steps ahead in spite of those experiences. One of the stories that you can read is the story of Yves Cote. Yves Cote is a lifer supported by Better Life for many years. I believe he gained parole in 2014. But you can read Yves' book, and it's just so helpful. And it's called Metamorphosis, and you can get it on Amazon. You can find it online and order that book, or you can get an online version. Another book that is well worth the read is from a man named Hank Dixon. And Hank's book is called A Lifer's Journey. And now Hank has been a chaplain for many years, but he talks about his experience of incarceration and coming out of incarceration. And in both Eve and Hank's case, the difference that gaining the support of others made in their ability to begin living a changed life. You can also watch Eve's story on YouTube, and I would encourage you to do that as well. It will lead to deeper understanding, because everyone is different, unique, and individual. But having an understanding of what an offender's experience in the institution and what the elements were that led to offending is valuable in terms of the relationship that we can develop. And through that relationship, a healthy reintegration experience. Thank you for joining us, and I look forward to seeing you again in session 2.